So in the last lesson, we spoke about how to make selections using the lasso tool, this magic wand tool, the marquee tool. In this lesson, I want to show you how to make selections again, but this time we're going to use the pen tool. So let's just hide this first faces group, and this time we'll work with the original faces group, just so that I've got clean and fresh images. I'll click and drag to move that to the top. So what I'm going to do in this tutorial is provide a more accurate outline of Angelina Jolie's face, and then I'll show you how I can make that into a selection. So I have her face selected. What I'm actually going to do is to create a new layer and fill it. So I'm going to fill that with 50% grey. So if I turn off Angelina Jolie, that's the background colour. Okay, so going to my Paths palette. Again, if you don't have the Paths palette available, you can go up to Window and select Paths. Now notice I can make paths in two ways. The first way is if I pick up the pen tool, I zoom all the way in, about 300% is usually good. And I can start by initiating a path. So the pen tool works in exactly the same way as it does in Illustrator. So we click to make an anchor point and drag to bring up the handlebars. Okay, look. What's happening over here in our Paths palette is that I've created a work path. You can do this, but it can be a little bit problematic once you get all the way to the end of your path and then have to try and convert it into a shape. A better process that I'd like you to work with is by creating a new path by pressing this new path or create a new path button in the bottom right hand corner. So I've created a new path. And then I'm going to draw in that path using my pen tool. So because her face is pretty smooth, I can make my points relatively far apart, just so long as that I'm still about 3 pixels on the inside of the outline. The reason that we want to draw just inside the shape that we're tracing is so that when we clear or make that selection, we want to ensure that Photoshop is only grabbing the pixels of a similar color range. If I start grabbing pieces of her hair, I'm going to end up with a black outline around my document, which is not something that I want. Similarly, you may be taking an object off a dark background and it's a light colored object. And if you get too close to the edge, you'll end up picking up the white pixels as well, and you'll have an object that looks as though it's glowing. Once you have this, it's also quite fiddly to then retouch it and make that glowing area go away. So it's always best to start with the most accurate path that you can. So as I said, I'm not being too precious about how close my points are together, because I know that this is a relatively accurate, or it will turn out to be a relatively accurate path that I'm making or selection. Again, you need to remember that you're working at 300%, so you may see that there are some mistakes in your path. It's not that necessary to fix them. I mean, I'll fix that one, but for the most part, once this path has been zoomed out to 100%, it will be quite difficult for someone to notice a minor mistake. Okay, so that's my path around Angelina Jolie's face. So then with that path selected, I need to click on the pull down menu. So notice if I deselect it, some options will be grayed out. If I select it, these are the options that I want. So the first one that I'm going to click is clipping path. Yes, I want to put a clipping path around path 1. And we know it's been turned into a clipping path because you then see an outline around the words path 1. What we need to do then is make a selection of that clipping path. The radius should always be at about 0.2 pixels, and then we'll see the ants running around Angelina Jolie's face. Go back to our layers palette. Again, press Command J to duplicate that selection, and you'll see I've got her face appearing on the grey background when I turn off that layer. Now, the reason that we make this a clipping path and not just make selection is because if I need to open up this document in any other program, like InDesign or Illustrator, those two programs will be able to read the clipping path. But if I just make a selection, then there's no information for InDesign or Photoshop to read that that area is a clipping path. So it's just good practice that you should always have a clipping path made once you're drawing an outline. Okay? And so that is creating and making selections using paths.